guessing the unknown from the known, or predicting the future from the present. These are basically magic. Good morning, friend. In this video, I'm going to offer you 3 tips towards understanding my videos better. But before I do, please subscribe to the channel if you're not already, like the video, and comment on the video for the sake of the algorithm. First of all, it feels a little bit unusual making videos after taking a day off. The reason I took a day off was because, I don't know if you guys have been noticing maybe on the videos, I've been fasting lately, and I decided to take a day off to enjoy breaking my fast and spend the day with my family. During my day off, I noticed that I received some comments on the YouTube channel which seemed to be a little bit repetitive and may have had a small misunderstanding of what I mean in my videos. In this video, I want to give you guys 3 tips that you can use to better understand my videos, beginning with what an association is. So for those that don't know, when we say something is associated with something, we mean that those 2 things move together more often than they don't. Meaning that they're somehow associated in some plane in which we analyze them. So for example, if we're thinking about their numerical quantity, when one of them goes up, the other is more likely to go up than not. In that way, we say the 2 variables are associated. So in my videos, when I say something is associated with something, it simply means that one thing moves in a direction with the other thing more often than it doesn't. It could actually move more often by very slightly, such that you're barely more likely to something, if something, but it moves in that direction more. So it could be very slight. So for example, if we say that a feminine finger ratio predicts homosexuality, what we mean is that homosexuality is associated in some way with a feminine ratio within some gender. Does that mean that everybody with a feminine ratio of that gender is a homosexual? Absolutely not. In fact, it may be a weak association, in which case they're barely more likely to be homosexual if they have a feminine ratio. Do you see what I mean? And that's just an example. I'm being careless with the terms a little bit, but I hope you guys understand my meaning. The second point I want to bring up is causality. Say, for example, we discover using statistical methods that 2 variables, x and y, are associated with each other. When x goes up numerically, y tends to go up more on average than it goes down. So we say they're associated. Does that mean that x causes y to go up? Absolutely not. Not only do we not know whether one variable causes the other variable to change, but we didn't make any assumption about that whatsoever. Them being associated with each other could be, for example, because they're both influenced by a 3rd variable, which influences both of them, such that they have no direct impact on each other, but some 3rd variable, z, is actually moving both of them. And it's moving one more than the other, for example. Such that you could inference z from x and y, and you could also predict x or y by having the other slightly better than you could otherwise. And in this kind of way, you can have a causal factor influencing an association indirectly. In fact, let's make a more general statement. In empirical science, we do not know causation. You may try to decipher it, you may come to some likely conclusions like I do, but you can't prove causation in empirical science. In theoretical science, you can assume some kind of causal factors, and you can deduce some from your assumptions. But when you talk about the real world, which is empiricism, you cannot discover causes. In fact, in the real world, you can only disprove things. You can't prove anything is true. So you can never be completely sure that something causes something else. You can only be sure that something doesn't cause it. So generally in these videos, when I mention associations between several things, I sometimes make a side note in the video telling you what I think the causal factor is, what is causing, what is really moving the other thing. But those are always my assumptions, or even assumptions of researchers that are not and cannot be fully validated. We can never prove those true. In fact, you can, as I said, never prove anything true. The practical outcome of this is essentially just that you never claim to know for sure causality. You never claim to know what causes what. You may have a mental model of causality that you may test, verifying whether some things are not the causes, but you can never be fully certain. So when you watch these videos about statistical associations, think of them as things that move with each other more often than not. And in fact, we'll tell you how much more often they move with each other. So you can imagine them as things you can use to predict other things. And finally, the third lesson I wanted to bring up is, I don't know how to describe this, but essentially think of the words you're using when you make a statement. So for example, if we say that somebody with, say for example, a feminine finger ratio is more likely to be homosexual, do we mean that all homosexuals have feminine finger ratios? No, that we didn't even say that. And also we don't mean that all people with feminine finger ratios are homosexual. We didn't say that either. All we said when we say more likely is that you can better predict if somebody is a homosexual by their finger ratio than if you didn't know it. That's all. And that could be by a very small effect. It could be a very small effect that in no way could make you decide if somebody's a homosexual according to their ratio. Maybe a very small effect. And by the way, this is just an example. I'm not saying that that's true. I'm just taking an example. That's the same to say if we have X, we know it's associated with Y. When we have X, do we know Y? No, we know Y is more likely, but we don't know for sure if we have Y or not. So basically, we always want to consider the words we're using in a statement and think about the meaning of those words, not using the word sort of randomly, but rather every word there means something, and then think about the logical meaning of that sentence and how it implies another logical meaning. We always have to be sort of consistent with this. Unfortunately, I really feel that the reason we have these common misunderstandings is because of statistics being something usually only taught in undergrad, and really unfairly so, because to be honest with you, the kind of mathematics we do in upper level math in high school isn't that practical for people that are not using mathematics in their career. So for example, how often do you do advanced algebra in your daily life? You probably don't at all. In fact, let's put it this way. Since having a calculator, you probably don't use any of the mathematical skills you learned in high school. Almost none of them. But you would certainly use these major outcomes from statistics, which is why I really feel that people in high school should be taught intro to statistics properly, because statistics is also very interesting. Remember, statistics is only one of two things: guessing the unknown from the known, or predicting the future from the present. These are basically magic. Statistics is the study of magic, and it has very profound impacts on how we understand things in the world. This is called, by the way, innumeracy. Innumeracy is the numerical equivalent to illiteracy. And without an understanding of statistics, a lot of us have innumeracy, which is nothing to be embarrassed about and something we can easily solve just by understanding the basic principles of statistics. We don't actually have to know how to use certain formulas or anything like that. And the other part of this, of course, is the basic kind of logical rigor in analyzing statements and so on. I think that an intro to computer science course would be great for people to have in high school, so they have this kind of logical rigor. A lot of this kind of algebra 2 stuff that we're doing, or people doing calculus in high school, never ends up helping us. But this could really help all of us understand, for example, studies better, so we know what to really make of them. So to remember, the first point is that associations are only that. There are two things moving together more often than they're not. Causality, causes, are almost impossible for us to determine in real life science. So we don't do that usually. We think about associations. We use those associations to build mental models of why things happen, but we never for sure prove that those models are correct. And finally, the outcomes of these associations have to be paid attention to in terms of the words we're using. They mean exactly what we say and not beyond that. So always remember what the meaning of the implications are really exactly, as opposed to just the phrasing of the words. Anyway, friends, I hope you found this video somewhat interesting, and I look forward to seeing you again this afternoon.